the fact that there's going to be a review of that whole financial sector cleanup and also identify the banks and other financial institutions that were unjustly shut down, and then also to look at how it was done and, as far as practicable, restore their licenses. Take a look.
We will restore indigenous Ghanaian investment in the financing and banking sector. And we will create a tiered banking system that will serve various segments of the market. We will give the opportunity for experienced banking hands who were laid off and needlessly to secure their careers once more and move away from the menial jobs that they were compelled to take. As far as practicable, the banking licenses that were unjustly cancelled by this government will be restored. Our nation is still at the crossroads with crippling debts and an inefficient and wasteful government. We cannot continue this pathway. It is a betrayal of our people.
Well, so that's the former president. And I'm going to show you as we go on the total number of financial institutions that went down as a result of this financial sector cleanup. Over 400 of them, with 9 commercial banks in there, a little over 300. That's the microfinance institutions as well, some of which before the cleanup exercise were not functioning. But the concern has always been about the approach. That's what you see there. The universal banks, 9 of them, you had 6 of them being consolidated into CBG, and then 2 were integrated into the GCB Bank, that's Capital and UT Bank. 347 microfinance institutions, microcredit institutions 39, savings and loans 15, that's where GN Bank is, non-bank financial institutions 2, and the finance houses, about 8 of them as well. So how is this process of identifying the banks and the financial institutions whose licenses were unjustly revoked going to be done?
Thank you very much, Alfred. Just want to make a statement first, and then I will take you through. If President Mahama had won the 2016 election, and we've had the challenges with the banking sector as we did around 2017 and 18, the cleanup, first of all, that crisis would not have happened in the first place.
But you had established through the asset quality review that there were challenges in the sector.
But I'm talking about the crisis as eventually became would not have happened in the first place, because things were being done to address the problem.
What are some of the things?
Now, before I come to that, again, because I'm making a statement, again, if those things had happened anyway, if the crisis had even happened, the management of it under President Mahama would have been much better in terms of saving some of these banks, as he's saying, saving businesses, not only the banks, businesses collapse as a result of these banks collapsing, saving jobs, saving people's investment, and basically having confidence in the banking sector. A lot of reforms were going on at the time, and time will not permit me to go through, but let me tell you what happened. That looks quite interesting. As you put on your pen, 9 banks, within a span of 1 to 2 years, 2017, 2018, 9 banks, 9 major universal banks will collapse in this country. The savings and loans are not 15 or so as you have it. If you put them all together, what is classified as savings and loans, they were, I think you have segregated them.
Yes.
They were 23 savings and loans, 347 microfinance, though some of the microfinance were actually more or less defunct.
Yes.
Then we have 39 finance houses and about 53 fund managers or fund management institutions. If you put it all together, within this short span, or this short time, this government collapsed about 471 financial institutions in this country. Somebody will ask, why do we have crisis in this country? We have a crisis as a result of these banks that will collapse. The way the collapsing itself was done, with the amount of money that they used in doing this. We have proved that the 9 banks could have been saved, all of them, not some, with just about 9 billion. If you look at the amount of capital they needed and all that. Now, they used over 20 billion or 21 billion. Some say 22.
I've had 25 billion.
Well, 25. It keeps going. Don't forget that we are still being levied. Financial, what is it called? Bailout levy, which is being paid to pay for this. And every year, in every year's budget, there's some money being spent on the banks that have already been collapsed. With this amalgamated institution that was set up, supposed to have some expert of bankers who were in there to advise the banks that were left behind. Look, banks were like NIB, were in worse state than some of these 9 banks that will collapse. It's in the budget. If you go to 2018 budget, you will see the amount of money that was spent in saving NIB, including some equity, some funny equity deals that were done in 2018 budget, which we question. But they saved NIB. They still say NIB still hasn't got strong legs to stand on. But at least it's operating as a bank. It has employed people. It's running, the banking as you should. Some of these banks, and President Mahama is right, that some of these banks could be saved. Now, let me give you the picture. We had the 9 banks. UT Bank and Capital Bank were put into GCB, through some private and assumption agreement, which was done. Now, UT was originally a savings and loans that ran for many years before it actually became a bank. It was suffering from some liquidity issues or some capital issues. Capital issues. Okay? It wasn't so much of its board, because the main guy had even come off the board, which is Mwabin. All what needed to be done was to capitalize this bank and basically put in proper corporate governance structure. Part of the failure of these banks was also not the banks themselves, but actually the central bank, for lack of proper supervision. So banks got collapsed because Bank of Ghana did not supervise banks well. Banks collapsed because details given by the banks to the central bank were false, and not proper investigations were done. Look, human nature is that people could lie their way through things if they can get away with it. That is why we have supervision, so that the people who are supervised will be able to do the right work. Now, you talk about 6 banks being put into, the consolidated bank. They were actually 7, and I will list them for you.
Right.
Sovereign Bank, Beige Bank, Premium, Royal, Heritage, Construction. These 7 banks here, look, every institution, like your institution here, you have your culture. These 7 banks have different cultures that were put together. This bank has done nothing since it was put together other than spending, because they are being pulled in different directions. There were others who merged for the right reasons, the Atlantic and those are done in the private sector. So these banks here, some of them can actually be, you can come, NDC can come back to power, John Mahama can come back to power, do some kind of segregation of assets. We will be able to tell. No, I know it's been about 5 years now, and probably will be more difficult than if we had done it a year ago. But if the banks are not, the amalgamation is not 10 years yet. So it can be done. Now, what needs to be done is that
Why you run that
when some of them can get their licenses, but they can go back to become savings and loans, because UT was a savings and loans for a long time before it became a bank.
Right.
But for instance, Beige wasn't. Beige became a bank very quickly after a short span in being. So we've got to look at even the licenses given. Construction Bank was a bank that was meant for construction. Why should such a bank be given a universal license? It's just like what we've done to Agriculture Bank, which was meant for agric, but we gave it a universal license, and now it's doing all sorts of things.
Okay.
NIB was set up for a purpose. It's become something else. Now we've set up a development bank, which could have been NIB.
So you've given some indication about how the approach that will be taken.
Absolutely.
Honorable Fuseni, the concern has been about the approach that was taken and not taking cognizance of the social cost of it, because not just the number of banks or financial institutions that went down, but a lot more about the human beings, the people who were working there, who have been rendered unemployed as a result of the approach that you took as well. That's the social cost plus the financial cost of the 25 billion as against other options that could have cost less.
Alfred, before I even come to it, the IMF situation, Dr. Champion was equating or trying to situate this in the Zambian situation. But obviously, what we achieved in 10 months, Zambia had taken over 2 years to do it. So it is not a case of Ghana, Zambia being this. Coming back to this banking cleanup, I cringed when I heard former President Mama made that pronouncement on the platform. Why? Because in the past, he had told us that during campaigning time, you tell people what they need to hear in order for them to vote for you. I pray that that is not the tangent on which he is going. This whole thing of banking cleanup, Honorable Ricketts had admitted teething problems within the sector. He had admitted failure of supervision from the Bank of Ghana. He has just admitted to this. We set out to save the deposits.
The Bank of Ghana then.
We set up, under you, because you knew. You had mentioned earlier on a banking asset review, quality of the assets of these banks. Look, the figures are there for you to see. Within 2019 and 2020, right, NPLs had reduced from 19% to 17%. It is in the IMF report. As a result of the capital situation, and this actually fits into the pricing of loans for you and myself. Look, we set out in this cleanup to save the deposits of over 4 million Ghanaians who had monies in these banks. What are banks supposed to do? People with surplus units go and put their monies there. People who want, or we call it deficits units, will go and take it. And so if there is a mismatch within there, the person who is supposed to be supervising, that the process goes on seamlessly to the benefit of the society. If they fail, this is what happens. It is intriguing that the people who supervise this today are telling us that when they come, they are going to go back to the way they used to. You mentioned the following. So what? So you are telling me the central bank who appointed the governor to that central bank?
But we are talking about
who had to ensure?
We're not talking about government.
I wait for the details. But you see, Alfred, let me make my point. Let me make my point. Look, for the case that is running in court with the Capital Bank, it has showed us, and in there it showed that the central bank kept throwing stimulus at those banks. That is why Mr. Essien today is in court and is required to pay up to 60 million by July 4th, or he goes to jail. It has been proven that the NDC supervised a lot of fraud in the sector.
So let me find out.
This is a fully run out issue within the bank.
There was
within
not a single bank run
within the courts. But
in this country until you started this.
If we hadn't taken those steps, one morning we're going to wake up and we're going to be run. Already, you talk about fund managers. Even before the cleanup started, people were going to fund managers without being able to access their own funds. They are placed with them. That's reality. That is a reality because of the in-depth supervision that the NDC did.
So
if we had also gone the same tangent, I'm sure the Ghanaian economy would have.
Let me find out this. Are you saying that the approach that you took was the best approach to address the problem at the time?
The approach in save. Are you questioning the approach we took in saving the deposits of 4 million Ghanaians?
No.
Are you questioning the approach we took in saving over 3,000 jobs? I am sure if NDC under John Dramani Mahama, the man who is saying that he's going to restore those licenses, if they had been responsible in issuing out those licenses, if they had been responsible in working out the weaknesses in the sector after the asset quality review in 2015, we would not have had to undertake that ICTA, and it's painful because for 25 billion to go to fix a problem we could have avoided, people who have to be held responsible. And I'm happy.
And let's talk about the alternative of the 9 billion, which could have actually saved us more.
You see,
and I'll talk about that's why I question you about the approach that was taken.
You from where you sit have the luxury to be putting out figures. You from the NDC and John Dramani Mahama, from where they sit, they have the luxury to be putting out figures. But if I said, look, if even it was going to cost us 1 city to solve the problem, a problem that we would have avoided, then they are to be held. Look, today, what I say is the case of Capital Bank. It's a clear indication, and it vindicates the government of the New Patriotic Party for taking this decision to save this deposit.
But you see,
our economy would have collapsed.
You see, question is, after you spend this much, 25 billion, you said the focus was to save depositors at the cost of the others, thousands of people who have lost their jobs as a result of the approach
we rather save jobs. So when you say job loss, I don't know.
No,
if we had sat down, Alfred, let me make a point. If we had sat down for this bank to collapse,
all the
many more thousands. If we had sat down, for the banks to collapse, many more thousands of jobs would have been lost.
So the money spent.
It wasn't a misjudgment. It was your ineptness.
Hold on.
Because we were inept. Because your government was inept. That led us to that situation. That we have to resolve. We couldn't resolve the situation that you had been on.
A knee-jerk reaction.
Now, because you see, after this money has been spent, one of many objectives of this cleanup, according to the Bank of Ghana, was to create a resilient financial sector. We have seen, per the accounts published by all 23 banks, about 19 or 18 out of the 23 banks have all posted losses as at the end of 2022. And CBG is actually the worst case, over 2 billion loss posted as at the end of 2022.
Alfred,
that is what the concern.
Alfred, I am surprised. I am surprised that you are attributing that situation. If you look at the IMF report that we have just read, it recognizes the fact that
but is that not a fact?
In 2019, the banks were healthy.
What I said,
they have been recapitalized. Yesterday we heard the governor saying that liquidity is not a problem.
So then
in
why
our
are they
banks
in this situation?
Because of their exposure to government securities as a result of the domestic debt exchange. That is a different issue from the financial sector cleanup.
No,
that is a different situation from the financial. I don't know why you are lumping up together. Because the exposure to government securities got them to that situation. And we keep saying that banks, like I said, the people with surplus units go to keep it in the bank. People with deficits who want to borrow. That's what banks are supposed to do.
Do you know why the banks...
Unfortunately, and that is not unique to the Ghanaian economy.
Do you know why banks were investing in government securities? Because until now, government securities were described as the safest.
It is not unique to the Ghanaian economy.
No, I am talking about Ghana. I'm talking about Ghana.
Same thing happening in the U.S. economy today.
Please, I'm talking about Ghana. The people who are watching us are Ghanaians who are impacted by the situation. So I'm sticking to Ghana. The experiences that we are faced with.
We are plugged into
what I'm trying to make is that
situation.
You would not blame banks for investing in securities, government securities, which has led to this situation, and to say that it is not linked. What I'm trying to say is the reason...
blaming banks. There is risk management which is supposed to go on in these financial institutions. And the problem is their overexposure to government revenue.
Let me bring in Lawyer Martin Pebu because he's directly connected to this.
The posture is that Then
Okay,
you,
thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
The ineptness
Thank you,
for which you
gentlemen.
supervise
Thank you.
the sector. You
can go. You can go.
To tell us today that
Gentlemen, hold on.
It's arrogance. You're telling us today that you are going to restore arrogance.
You have made your point. You have made your point. Point well made. Let me bring in.
Which I could have left.
You have made your point.
No, he's talking.
You have made your point.
The incompetence.
Thank you. Thank you. Your microphones are off. Your microphones are off. Your microphones are off. Thank you. Your microphones are off. Your microphones are off. Thank you very much. Let me bring you on this point. Yes. So because what is happening now, you are directly connected because of the group that you lead, and the fact that banks cannot and should not, in fact, the financial institutions, not just banks, cannot and should not be faulted for investing in government securities, which are described, at least until now, as the safest. But because of what has happened to this economy, we have all been exposed to what is going on. That's why your group, the bondholders as well, you had investment in government securities. What's your take on this?
Yes. So, as I said, theoretically, now we've seen that, hey, we can't rely too much on the theory. Government was said to be the safest institution to invest with. But now we know better that government is really not safe at all. Because exactly, that's the problem. Yes. Yes. So now we know. But you see, as I said, you can't blame the banks because, by the law, even if you look at the Pensions Act, usually about 70% of the money that they would get, you have to invest with government. You see, so that's law. So that's law. You can't do otherwise because government is seen to be safest. You invest about 70% of the revenues with the government. So when you create such a system, and people invest, and then later you come in and you don't pay when it is due, of course, you're going to erode the confidence in the financial system. And so now you see that we are rock bottom. Confidence has gone down. You see what Honorable Ricky Segan is saying. We'll take our money back to our bedrooms, under our pillows. People will dig holes in their houses and put in their money. I mean, how? You move.
At least the principal will not get a haircut.
Exactly. That's a problem. Yes.
Remember, interest, but
yes.
The principal will not get a haircut.
Thank you. You had President Kufuor famously, and I repeat, there will be no haircut. And I repeat, there will be no haircut. Now, today, who is having the haircut? You see, the finance minister, the same thing, when he launched the debt exchange program, he said there will be no haircut, right? So when you look at the context of everything, you just see that, look, other experts have actually even said it, that there was no need to revoke these licenses. Have you seen Dr. Abuaji Debra? Yes, Abuaji Debra taught me in the School of Admin those days. Yeah, our professor. He'll tell you, right? You need to think outside the box. He was famous for it. Yeah, he said, think outside the box. You just don't come and then you think what you have to do. And in actual fact, it turned out that, look, a lot of the revocations were what? Politically motivated. Politically motivated. You could see the revocation of some of the bank licensing was to cut oxygen from businesses owned by opposition. If you look at Dr. Dufo's Unibank, if you look at it, now hasn't data bank shut down? Are they not operating remotely? So when people did a run on data bank, they shut down. Is that the same thing? Could they pay? Could data bank pay customers when customers went for their money? Were they not giving? Was data bank not giving customers a haircut? If they had a certain amount of money, then they will reduce. Then eventually, when they saw that they couldn't pay, they shut down the offices fiscally. Now they are operating remotely. Why hasn't the Securities and Exchange Commission revoked their license? Why hasn't? Because Obami used to work for Data Bank. You see the incestuous relationship. Obami Tete used to work for Data Bank. So you see, how can it be independent?
So what are you saying about this?
Oh, no.
Yes. That's what I'm saying, yes. Because of the conflict. Because of the conflict of interest. Yes, but but conflict of interest. He was an employee of Oforiatta. So today, Oforiatta's data bank cannot pay customers. And Obama Tete is not willing to. Yeah, but that's teaching. That's theory. We are talking.
You are praising your lecturer.
Right. Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you. It's some 27 minutes.
Yes, so
to the top of the hour.
Obama Tete has to take on data bank. He has to take on data bank because
27 minutes to the top of the hour.
Haircuts. Yeah, he's giving customers haircut and had to shut down with a rules that they are managed to the government. So the point we are making is that just as the government climbed the moral high horse 2018 and 17-18 and revoke those licenses, they should revoke the license of data bank too. They should revoke because the same thing. People are doing a run on data bank. Yeah. Data bank can't pay. Why hasn't the license been revoked? So you see the double standards. Double standards. So experts.
There wasn't any run on the banks.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Alfred, I have 1 minute to wrap up.
No, you'll come back to you. Gentlemen, hold on a bit for me. Hold on. Let's do this very quickly. Yes. And today, the 3FM Tour de Ghana is taking place. I want to give you just a sneak preview of what's happening. Just 2 minutes. And Professor Kweku Asare is already joining us on Zoom for the next conversation. Take a look.
Professional cyclists and amateurs. The amateurs have actually taken the lead. These are the professionals, and 145 of them, they are ready to try their hands on, the possibility of being crowned the champion of 3FM Tour de Ghana. Yes, the program is Tour de Ghana, and there's a third edition. Remember, the first edition, we went straight to Akosombo, all the way from Tema. It was about 100 kilometers. We tried tripling that in the second year. That was the 2022 edition. We moved from Tema through to Ho and then back to Accra. This year, we have decided to move to the west. And what we are doing is taking these cyclists through Kaswa, Winneba, Mankesim, Salt Pond, Yamaransa. You know where I'm getting at, right? We are going straight to Cape Coast, but we'll be going through Elmina, and the total distance is almost 150 kilometers on a bicycle, 2 ties. But remember, they are going to be very, very heavily guarded and protected by the Ghana Police Service. Also, their medicals, has also been cushioned by the Ghana National Ambulance Service. They are making sure that these cyclists are safe on our road, especially as we are crossing different towns to get to our final destination of Cape Coast. My name is Thierry Nyan, and I'm your host. These gentlemen tell me that they are ready, but also those who are ready are sponsors. Super Yogo, they say go for more. And then Dano Milk, they say go for it. And then Vena Mineral Water, purified water. These cyclists are also insured by Sanlam General Insurance, and they are covering, they are giving these cyclists an accident cover. So it really will be exciting to see how these cyclists are going to be faring, on such a major road here in Ghana. For us here on TV3 and of course on 3FM, we are here as organizers to make sure that they have a very smooth journey getting to their final destination. Once again, my name is Thierry Nyan. Johnny Hughes is here to flag them, and the Ghana Cyclist Federation are also here to ensure that the rules are adhered to. But Johnny, since you've been here, I know you've been here for some time. Right. Since you've been here, what have you noticed, especially by these cyclists? I have noticed that there's a lot of enthusiasm. They're ready for it. The winner from last year tells me that he doesn't want to lose the crown. He wants to keep it. There are new entrants that I've seen, as opposed to what I saw last year and the previous year, and they are all interested in trying to get the big fat prize at the end of it. I also saw that the amateur group, those who have taken the lead at this point, some of them actually wanted to join the professional group at the last end, but I told them, boss, slow down. You arrive tomorrow, so slow down. Be calming down. Be calming down. So there's a lot of fun and excitement here at the West Hills Mall. Excitement, and you can only get it on they say Tour de Ghana. Tour de Ghana. Not Tour, it's Tour. Yeah, it's not Tour de Ghana too. It's Tour de Ghana. It's Tour de Ghana, and I'm your host for the Tour de Ghana. But remember, these are the cyclists, these are the men who matter, and they are the guys who are going to be showing us what they are made of. So let's see exactly what it will be. But at the end of it all, I'll be announcing what the prizes will be. I can give you a sneak peek. We have more than 30,000 Ghana cedis in cash to share among the top five of these athletes. So that tells you quite an amount of money will be going around. We also have some great souvenirs by partners and sponsors. DHL, one of those partners. But I'll see you later on when we get to Cape Coast. But for now, it is all about these cyclists, and I want to hear a huge shout for my cyclists. They are watching. All right, so that clearly tells you that these gentlemen are ready. So let's see what they give us across a distance of 145.5 kilometers through Elmina to Cape Coast, right here from the West Hills Mall. The flag will go up soon, and then you see the race starting. It will heat up much later, but for now, it's just, So you remember you're still watching us on TV3, and you're listening on 3FM. My name is Thierry Binyan. Let's get to the cyclists now. So what you see there is the Federation, issuing instructions to the cyclists, telling them what is to be done and to be seen across the distance. So they are listening to the instructions.
That's the 3FM Tour de Ghana, and it's a two-day event. So these cyclists are going to be cycling for the next, just a little over 24 hours. So it's a great one. But you can follow it every step of the way on 3news.com and also TV3 Ghana on Facebook and 3FM927 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Martin, we run up in 30 seconds. I have Professor Kwekwaza.
Okay. Yes. All right. So I was saying that Dr. Abuaji Deborah says that, look, copying from the U.S. experience, all right. The crisis 2008, 2009, what the Bank of Ghana should have done was to have separated the bad assets of these struggling banks from the good ones, and then giving them a period of time to clean up. You see, giving them a period of time to clean up. That's what the experts say. That is key. It's no brainer. But you see, when they hurry and politically motivated, you see, key amongst them was Dufour's bank. Then the other one, Sovereign Bank. You see, if you look at the people behind Sovereign Bank, etc., then you see that it was political what? Vendetta.
Lawyer Martin,
very vindictive.
Now, private legal practitioner. Thank you. The Honorable Fuseni is former Member of Parliament. George Kwekuru Hagan is Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South. And talking about members of Parliament, this week, that's our next and final conversation, the Supreme Court directed or ruled, as a matter of fact, that Parliament should expunge the records of James Jachekwason from its books as MP for the Asin North constituency. This case has traveled from December 2020 to date, when one Michael Ankoma petitioned the High Court, the Cape Coast High Court, on the eligibility of James Jachekwason to contest the 2020 general elections on the ticket of the NDC as his Member of Parliament in the Cape Coast, that's Asin North constituency. This case, this week, and the determination by the Supreme Court has generated a conversation about the dual citizenship law. I'm going to put on the screen right now the two laws that have been referred, Article 8.2 and Article 94.2 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. Let me put it on record that there's already a bill which is in motion, already in Parliament, seeking to amend this particular law in our Constitution. The last time I checked, the bill is awaiting second and third reading in Parliament. It has actually received the blessing of the Council of State. And if the recent comments by John Mahama and then in 2019, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo himself is anything to go by, there appears to be some political consensus on this matter. Thankfully, we have one man who has been championing this particular bill in Parliament. Professor Stephen Kwekwaza is with the University of Florida, a member of the Florida Bar. He is the CDD Fellow, Democracy and Development, Public Law and Justice. He's joining us on Zoom. Professor Kweku Azare, thank you so much for joining us on Key Point.
Thank you, Alfred. Thanks for having me.
And I appreciate your commitment to this. I think it's about, what, 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. where you are?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this.
Almost 6 a.m.
Thank you so much for doing this for us and indeed the Ghanaian people. I mean, tell us, first of all, to understand this, the questions being raised about this provision, the Constitution, the reason or the justification given by the framers of the Constitution on this law, Article 8.2 and 94.2, on the dual citizenship, that's people with dual citizenship not being allowed to hold certain offices in the country, and why those justifications may have outlived its usefulness as we speak.
Well, good question, Alfred. And it is important when you ask that question to remember that the assembly, the committee of experts and the consultative assembly that discussed the 1992 Constitution and ultimately promulgated it, discussed this question. And their solution in 1992 was that dual citizenship was not allowed. Dual citizenship was not allowed. So the Article 8.2 that you are reading is an amendment. I call it the first amendment. It was procured in 1996. I was part of the lobby that actually got the amendment. And the reasons we gave and the reasons Parliament saw eye to eye with us was because dual citizenship itself had become an unexceptional status. Or initially, historically, people or countries were a little suspicious of people who had other citizenships. Not because they didn't want them to hold office, but because they wanted to control these people in times of war. The British were notorious for doing that because many of their citizens, in those days, they actually called them subjects. Many of their subjects would migrate to North America. And if there was a war, the British doctrine was that their subjects owed permanent and perpetual allegiance to them. So even if they had taken on the citizenship of another country, such as America, they could conscript them and use them in war. Now, we don't fight wars anymore, and most countries have shared these archaic views about dual citizenship. And so in 1996, when we went to Parliament, Parliament understood what we were saying, and Parliament said, yes, it's time to repeal at the old Article 8 that outlawed dual citizenship, and then inserted the new Article 8.1, which says a citizen of Ghana can hold the citizenship of another country. And Alfred, the reason that is important is that it tells us that Article 94.2a, which is on allegiance, has nothing to do with dual citizenship, because Article 94.2a was in the Constitution at a time when dual citizenship was not even allowed. Unfortunately, there is some minimalist interpretation of the Constitution which goes like that. When we see allegiance, because allegiance has something to do with citizenship, then allegiance, as used in Article 94.2, has something to do with citizenship. It doesn't, absolutely. That is a minimalist interpretation of the Constitution that ignores the history behind the use of allegiance in Article 94.2a. And if you go to countries like Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Australia, and all the Commonwealth countries, there is a strong distinction between allegiance to a country and citizenship of a country. This is a British inheritance. We inherited that allegiance to a country other than Ghana from the British, and it is a feudal idea. In fact, if you look at the first Republic Constitution, which was controlled and written by Nkrumah, who had a very keen awareness of colonialism and feudalism, the whole allegiance to a country other than Ghana is entirely expunged from the 1960 Constitution. You can see it in the 1957 Constitution that was under the monarchy. Then they copied it back in the 1969 Constitution, the 1979 Constitution, the 1992 Constitution, but it has nothing to do with citizenship. If you go and you read the 1969 proposals on promulgating the Constitution, it is occupation related. It is directed against people who are in occupations that are incompatible with being an MP, right? So an example of that would be someone who served in the military of a foreign country that was an enemy of Ghana, or somebody who was a Ghanaian, a single citizen Ghanaian, because remember, dual citizenship is not even allowed. A single citizen who spied for another country. Some of you may recall the swap between Susudis and 8 single citizen Ghanaians. That allegiance to a country other than Ghana is referring to that, not dual citizenship. Nevertheless, our courts, I mean, obviously, the high courts, and it appears now the Supreme Court, although we don't have their reasoning, for whatever reason, strange, the Supreme Court is also equating allegiance to citizenship, a very fundamental mistake. Nevertheless, look, we have evolved in our thinking about citizenship. If you go back and you read citizenship, you read about citizenship, you go to the ancient Greece, they thought citizenship should be confined only to property owners. Then you go to the Roman Empire, they thought citizenship should be confined to the residents of Rome, and others that they conquered are not citizens, they are aliens. Then if you go to the British Empire, borrowing from feudal law, they conceptualize citizens as subjects who owed allegiance to the monarch, who owed perpetual allegiance to the monarch. All of these views about citizenship, if people read the literature on citizenship, are archaic. Today, in just about every country, including in our own constitution, if you study our constitution carefully, citizenship is viewed as a bundle of rights and some reciprocal duties to the state. What distinguishes a Ghanaian citizen from a non-Ghanaian citizen is the right to participate equally and fully in the political space. That's why yesterday I posted a clip from the Sierra Leone Supreme Court, which basically is to the effect, you cannot say you have a citizen, but that citizen does not have political rights.
Right.
The most important political right is the right to vote and the right to be voted for.
Right.
So in Sierra Leone, in Nigeria, in most countries, all citizens have the right to be voted for. Now, this is not to say you are compelled to vote for somebody who is a dual citizen, but if somebody is a dual citizen, he should be given the right to make his case. Right. And if the people want him, let them vote for him. That's why I support this bill that is in Parliament. That is why I'm happy that there is a bipartisan agreement around it. There's consensus. There's the Council of States, in its wisdom, has seen that, look, we have to treat all Ghanaians equally.
That's right.
And so I'm happy that this bill is going through. and I hope it is passed this June when Parliament reconvenes.
Very important points that you've raised. Professor, hold on a bit for me. Hold on to that point for me, because I'm going to go for this quick break. When I come back, we'll ask about what this ruling really means in efforts to get a